things like the army and institutions. Like Ikhwan is run as an institution. So in institutions, leadership is something that is a structured thing rather than a charismatic thing. So in organizing, it's important to understand that organizational leadership is something that when you're very small, and you're a small company or startup, you don't have organizational leadership. You don't have the structure. You have founders who are, by default, the leaders in this project. Okay. But as things grow, you'll find that to substitute for the charisma or for the vision, people put in structures. So that you have, if this person leaves, you can plug in another person who can be a leader. They have certain qualifications that enable them to continue working on leadership. Like Apple, Steve Jobs was acclaimed as a great leader and visionary in technology and the future of mobile computing, product design, development, and a lot of people were worried that if he's not there, the whole thing will collapse. Okay? And we've seen that. Of course, that's not true because inside Apple they have an organizational structure that you can put in pretty much someone else, and it will continue to grow. However, when you're in a smaller organization, it's very much a risk if the person who's the founder or people who are the founders are no longer going to be inside the organization because they start off with something that is more sort of personal to them and they're driving it and they're getting people to come and join them for it. So so what else? We're talking about Morsi and his qualifications for leadership. Okay? So the first thing he said was he was put into this position rather than he said, I'm going to be the Rosh Hamidullah, and they said, would you accept taking Sharta's place as the candidate for the FJP? So what are the negative things about the new president in terms of leadership? So many, mentioned this. He's not going to have control over very much these things. Because, in a transition, Egypt does need a strong leader who is able to get people behind the idea of moving forward from this phase that it's been in for a long time. So what do you see his strengths or weaknesses in this area?
I don't think he had that vision we need in the current period. I don't think he has that charisma we want. I'm not. I don't think he will succeed in upcoming.
We're going to start writing down some keywords because I want to remember stuff. Okay, so the first one is a vision. It's a very important thing for a leader, for leadership, is to have a vision. In the old word, the sort of growth of the word leadership comes very closely related to guide. Okay, so people would consider a leader being a guide. So a guide to something or somewhere. And there are two types of leaders: those who show you there's a map, off you go, and there's Yalla Ta'ala Ma'aya and Rahma Marcel. Okay. Vision comes into play where you have someone sees a destination. In business terms, it's a hadath, or it's a new service that's going to change people's lives or make their life easier or more enjoyable. And they have this vision, and then they want to bring other people in to share the vision and to move them forward. What kind of guide or what kind of visionary is our new president?
A guy who is guided by someone else.
Okay.
He's not the type of Yalla Ta'ala Ma'aya, no? He will put a plan and this is what you shoot forward. And I think he has also the unifying message, that the one message that will unify all people to come together for one goal or a set of goals, clear, defined goals that we should do in this next 4 years of my presidency.
Okay, so you have vision, and then you have something called goals. And they're clearly defined, and through they're achievable in some way or another in your lifetime or in his lifetime. Okay. So he doesn't have, until now, he hasn't mentioned a clear set of goals, and he's also not the visionary in the party he represents, let's say. Would that be fair? Would that be fair criticism?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so why do you think that 13 million people voted for him?
It's a different issue. It doesn't have to do with himself. It has to do with the other person.
It's more, yeah. So it's not necessarily that he's a great leader. He's managed to, through his charisma or through his vision and set of goals, he's managed to say, get 13 million people to go and vote for him. It's somehow the I don't want to vote for the other guy is worse than him. So it's a bit of a unique situation where it's the lesser, for some people's mind, the lesser of two evils, or the least painful solution. Because we've had historical Saura and mistrust of anyone to do with the Mubarak regime. He was very much part of the Mubarak regime. What about someone like someone who didn't get involved but claims to have a vision and clear goals? Baradei. Okay, you think he says he has a vision for the country and he's spelled out some.
And Bradley lacks the tools to achieve on the ground. And he just talks, he lectures,
Okay.
but he doesn't get people. Even if people he has the Gabnet al-Taghyir, some sort of a mechanism to achieve what he says. He failed them.
Okay. So we don't have tools. So there are two subdivisions of leadership. Okay. There's thought leadership. Is that you're a great thinker. You have a clear mind and a clear focus, and you're able to convince people that you have thought very deeply about the issues, but you're not the person who's going to take it forward. There are many great thinkers in the world, like Noam Chomsky and others, who don't get involved in the day-to-day. So there's thought leadership, those who are challenging people to think in new ways and to overcome prejudices and old ways of thinking. And then there's the action leaders. I have the plan. I've taken someone else's ideas, and I'm going to be the one to implement them, and I have the tools to do it. Okay. So, in a young startup company, what kind of leadership do you think is important for the what's the stress you would think that would be? You're all young leaders, okay? How's that help? What do you see as the main sort of direction, whether thought or action, you would be taking? It's action, yeah?
Yeah, action. A great deal should be action, but you should have thought of before you implement. You take a step forward. You should have some thoughts about.
Okay, so in leadership, there's 20, 20 thought, 80 action. Okay. If you are going to convince people to join your project if you were going to ask people to join you, I mean, some of you are friends from school or have been colleagues together on other projects, you know each other, and you have an idea and say, okay, تعالوا معايا أنا فكرة كويسة ونقدر نعملها. What is it that you're appealing to? What motivation are you appealing to when you're recruiting co-founders or early startup employees. What do you think is the motive that you're trying to capture in some ways? Someone to join.
Their ability to carry on with me. Yeah, they have expertise that I need, and this project is lucrative for them in one way or another.
Okay, so some motivations would be that you'll get paid,
Oh yeah, you will take equity
or you'll take an equity. Okay. Would you say that both thought and action need a vision? Do you have to appeal to somebody that there's a sense of equity in what? The next big thing, the greatest achievement in Egypt, an export market, a global dominance. In some ways, you're selling a dream or a vision. You want people to come on board with you, with this vision. So the thought part is related very much to the vision, and the action part is related to the tools. Okay, so I would say that you are trying to get people outside of their normal motives, which can be very basic. I need to work to get money to pay for, save for my getting married, or to pay for my installments on my car, or very basic necessary things. I think that as a leader in a young startup, you're asking people to go beyond that motivation. And to put aside somehow security of a steady job that they might be in now, and say, join with me, and I'll be taking you somewhere that, if everything goes right and we work it together, we can find the right kind of support, we will take it and it'll be much more exciting for you. And it could be, we talk about motivation. Motivation is very, very important for leadership. It's actually, if I had to give 100%, motivation would be 80% when you're moving together as a team. For example, how do you motivate someone to die for you? Okay? The ultimate sacrifice. There are people who manage to motivate others, okay, and shoot at whoever's on the hill with the probable likelihood of dying in the process. This is a tough one, right? I mean, luckily you're not being asked to do that. You're not asking people to die for you. But what is the motivation for someone who's going to do that?
Honor.
He has to believe in that.
He has to honor, he has to believe that there's something bigger than him, some cause,
something worth it.
Something worth it. And he's got to believe that the guy who's telling him to do that is credible, and you can trust him, and he's not, throwing away your life for nothing. So all these ideas of leadership. You can take, history has millions of examples of great leaders and terrible leaders, and there are millions of examples of motivation. And some people go up the hill just because that's the structure. I get ordered, I don't think too much about it, I jump and go into running up the hill to die, unfortunately. And some people think about it and they say, well, if they would think about it beforehand, if I was asked to do this, would I follow this order from this person? Yeah, because I believe that he will not risk my life unnecessarily, or that I would have to do this because it's protecting my homeland, my family will bring honor, I will go to heaven, whatever greater goals there are. So motivation is key. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey. So I started at 11 because it's a discussion, and we've got a great opportunity to discuss the leadership of the country.
No politics. No politics.
No politics.
Oh,
That was not political. We're talking about leadership elements. So motivation, I would say that it is the overriding. No, I don't need the video today. I just made some notes if I need to refer to them. Book now. And a motivation beyond people's normal motivations, which are economic or mainly economic these days. So the key challenge when you're bringing people into your project is the motivation, which comes back to your vision and your personal ability to be able to A, convince them that you have vision and that you have the tools to do it, and B, that they'll be better off with your vision than with their present circumstances. So you're moving along and you have your group, okay? Keeping them motivated is also a very tough challenge. And there's lots of self-help books for managers that you can, how to for dummies, be a manager. But the reality is it's about understanding people. And this is why I spoke about the organizational leadership. You don't really have to understand people as much as you do when you're working very closely with a small team, where you have to understand critically what motivates people and how to keep them motivated. Some people like challenges. Give them plenty of challenges and I will be motivated. And some people like the end road, the end of the road. They will keep you motivated because they'll keep keeping you reminded why they're there. So it's important for you as leaders of your people to understand, first of all, what are people's real motivations, to how you're going to keep them aligned with you going forward. I was going to give you all an exercise to do before the thing, just watch a movie, but I figured that I'll just tell you about the movie if you haven't seen it already. Have any of you seen the movie Serenity? Well, the movie is Firefly, actually. The series is Serenity, or is it the other way around?
Other way around.
Other way around, okay. Anyone familiar with this? No? I should have given some homework. This is a great series and a great movie. And it's about a group of people on the run from a very kind of conformist, structured empire that doesn't allow much freedom of movement and thought and these kind of things. And these guys are smugglers in space, deep space. So they've got this really crappy old ship, and they have this captain who's their leader. Now all the way through, you see that the motivation for most of the people in there, it's a small crew, like 6 or 7 people. Can't write them on the board so you get Serenity and Firefly. These individuals are mainly motivated by 2 things. One, keeping away from this empire because they have some kind of criminal backgrounds or they just didn't get along. And the other one is there's a chance to make lots of money doing this job. But at some point, it becomes clear that there is some overriding secret that this empire has done something. Okay, I'm not going to give away the plot, but it's really, really, really had a huge impact on humanity. And they uncover what it is. And most of them say, well, it's not our problem. We're smugglers and we do our thing and we'll stay one step ahead of them. And the captain, all of a sudden, becomes the real leader. He's the leader by virtue of being captain. He pays their wages and it's his ship. Okay, so normally his leadership style is very much into you do it because I say you do it. And there'll be some fights and slapping and things like this. But in this case, he has to appeal to a completely different motivation for people. That if we don't expose this, then all of our families, everyone's at risk. And I think it's important to see how, to have a look at this very enjoyable movies and series, to see how his style of management changes in order to appeal to people's greater motives. To get through the usual, there's money in it, or it'll keep us away from the empire. We're going to go back into the middle of the empire, and we're going to confront all of our worst fears, and we're probably not going to live in doing so. And this is a kind of very dramatic way of looking at how you guys deal with leadership issues and getting people to be motivated beyond their normal daily motivations. If you were to pick a historical or present leader that you admire most, who would it be? If you had one person in it, this person, I would follow them, or I would listen to them. And you can jump around in time. You can go back to Greek or Roman or ancient Islamic, or as you like, a leader, why you think they deserve to be followed, or you admire?
Yeah, I would say Umar ibn Abdul Aziz is called it the fifth Khalifa Khulafa Rashidun, because he didn't put himself first. He put the welfare of the people first, and he worked really hard to guarantee the achievement. The people will be treated educated, will have health care, food, what is that? Food security and stuff like that, and job security as well. So yeah, I would follow him blindly.
So you like the idea of someone who isn't going for the glory as much as it has a vision for helping as many people as possible. Yeah. Okay. Well, you can say anything else if you want. I don't mind. It's not exactly.
Steve Jobs was like the guy who is a great leader in the sense he's very smart. I'd like to follow someone who's smart, with a vision, who is confident about himself, taking the right decision, with strong history of success.
Okay. At what point would you follow Steve Jobs in his life?
What do you mean?
Well, what I mean is that
I don't want to fall into a grave.
In Steve Jobs' life, for example, he quit Apple, or he was moved aside in terms of Apple management. He didn't have a vision as he did towards the later days. So that, people who would be following him, I guess that it's a sort of leading question is that success in leadership is based on multiple factors that we know, and so you would follow him because he's smart and he's successful. But actually, in the beginning, he was smart, but he was actually driving Apple down the drain at some point. Or Macintoshes. So also in terms of leadership, it can be interesting to look at your motive for following him today would be that he became almost the greatest entrepreneur in modern history and built a company out of that. Built a company that was falling down, came back and built it back up into a superpower. So this is admirable, right? You admire that he was able to, go away, think about what mistakes he was making, and come back even stronger with a vision, and go and make the company great. Would you say that it was his thought leadership or his action leadership that you admire most?
I believe both, because when someone, whatever action he's doing, it's based on what he's thinking. So I can get the separation between both of them, because whatever action you're doing, it indicates what you're thinking. And for sure, sometimes it's just a plan in your head, but you have to communicate it to your team. So through this communication, I know what you're thinking of.
Yeah, but some people, why I separated thought from action is that there are some people, like Al-Baradei, who have no intention of following through on the action part. Okay? He's not going to run for president anytime soon. Okay? So there are people who are founders of companies or work within a startup who have a great idea, but they're not the right person to lead it. It's not necessarily the person who has the idea in the beginning has the ability to execute it and be the right person to lead it. This happens.
Okay, so we can say the action is the ability to execute.
The ability to execute.
Okay.
You have the tools and the ability to execute.
Okay.
The thought is you have a great idea and you see it, you can have a vision. Now sometimes it's combined in one person or a small group of people, and sometimes it's not. There's separation, and you'll find this often when you're being, later down the line. Inshallah, when you reach a point where there's a VC interested in you or angel investors. That they do something called due diligence, and part of it is looking at the management team to see where the thought leadership is and where the action leadership is, and we can get the popcorn. And they often challenge a company to say, okay, you're the guy with the vision, all right, but we don't think that you're strong enough to take it through to the next stage of expansion as a leader. And it's quite a hard thing for someone who's a founder to think, لا مش فاهم That's the key. I've taken it this far. Maybe they're more ruthless in business. Maybe they've got greater network connections. Maybe they've got past experience where they've taken companies of this size and grown them to this size. And they'll say to you, well, wait, we're going to take an executive on the board role, and you'll have a role maybe in product development and design. But unfortunately, we're going to find another CEO for your company. This happens quite a lot, especially the big amounts of money they're involved in, because they have a risk management matrix that says, tick, 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 action, expansion, our money, not sure about this guy. And it's usually a showstopper, something called a showstopper, which means if you say no, I can't go to the next PC, we're not interested. So that's why there is a separation between these kind of things in leadership. Or it could be that you're able to manage, you're able to motivate this small group of people, but we don't believe you're able to motivate a larger group of people and be much more of an organization, which you'll need to be. So then we're coming between the two things, between organizational leadership and, I guess, visionary or inspirational leadership, charismatic leadership. So those are also separated out. And you will experience this through the lifetime of your work, that people will say, yeah, you've got a great idea, so you're not the guy to run it. Someone like Henry will say that.
Yeah, but maybe this is a separate question, but sometimes I feel they would ask a question like that to challenge you, to see, to study your response. So you said you should say, okay, fine, bring this other person. If I said this while talking to the investor, okay, so he would say he's not, okay, it's not the right person. I want him to say, no, I'm good enough to do this.
Yeah, but that's second guessing everything, because you can't second guess every kind of thing. Sometimes people are just straightforward like that. You've done a great job up to now, but we believe that you're not the right guy to take it forward. You're going to put someone else in. You can help us choose that person and be involved in it, whatever. And I've seen it.
This actually, it happens a lot here in Egypt. Someone starts an idea and they tell him, okay, step aside, we'll bring someone else to continue this idea.
I haven't seen many examples in Egypt, that's for sure, but it happens a lot in VCs. And we haven't had a lot of VC action in Egypt.
Yeah.
And a big fat, almost zero. We've had 4 or 5 startups that have got VC action. And a couple of those you might see in the near future, where the person who was the founder will be moved into a different role inside the organization as it expands bigger. It's the nature of VCs. It's the nature of corporations who are managing large amounts of money and see potential, but it's a bit of a sticking point. And that's why your management team that you build together is something that's really, really important. For example, when I wanted to get out of Sarmady, what was the first thing I did? I didn't go to a VC.
You found someone else?
What I did was create a great team that could work without me. Okay, they have vision and they have the execution and they have the tools, and when I'm a small board, that company will continue to grow. Therefore, the investors think, well, okay, it's great. I'm not investing in com. Because I'm investing in a company that has a great management team that has it took a while, but but that's later down the line in terms of things. It's always worth thinking about that. You're tied emotionally to what you're doing. This is your baby, and you love it, and you're going to grow it, and with diet, all of these emotional things. But in reality, from the other side, they're looking at it as a business proposition. For them, it's flus and more flus and more flus. And they're not emotionally attached.
There are a lot of flus.
And they're not emotionally attached like you are. A good example is when you have your first car, you mean so actually, and you think it's a great car, and when you put it on the market and you sort of overvalue it, so you put it up at £15,000 and it's already 30 years old. It's £15,000 and I'm not going, and the person coming to buy it is thinking, and you've got a name for the car. It's mad. It's the same kind of thing. So what about, I write some notes so we can sort of keep track of it and cover some ground here. So a good question that a lot of people ask themselves when they're working in a company and in a startup, there's a question you get. It's like, who made you the boss of me? Especially when you're equal partners. Somebody has to be a decision maker. So, who decides who is the boss? Do you guys reach that kind of conclusion yet? Is it clear inside your startup who is the final decision maker? Or is it all like, let's raise hands and if we all agree, we'll continue? Where are you? What stage are you at in your startups?
In our team, we have chosen the CEO. Based on what? Based on our project was the project we are developing was our graduation project in college. So when we first formed our team, we formed it in an organized way, in a structured way. We have a team leader and sub-team leaders. So we have.
So you're clearly defined.
Yes.
But if it comes to arbitration, the top will say, "Now listen to this and this and this and this, but this is the way we're going." And you all say, "Fine."
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess we share the views, so and we agree on one final decision.
Almost.
Like,
Oh,
no,
but
just
then-
because I think finally, like, I don't know, so far no conflict and so but finally I think the CEO would actually take the decision.
When you decided who the CEO
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Okay. CEO is such a big title. For us. Yeah, actually.
Yeah, like I started in the company as well by myself, but right now I have CTO and art director. So like it's well known that I'm the leader here, but actually this is one of the things that I want to ask you, like how far a leader should like take votes, and because he trusts his team and their experience, he'll say, okay, maybe like he knows better about this, I'll follow him, even if I'm not convinced.
It's a tricky one. You want, first of all, you want people to feel real ownership of their position.
Yeah.
So if you've got the CTO and he's giving you his technical expertise, presumably he's there for a reason. He's there because he's got at least as much and usually more, preferably more experience than you in this area of design. And you might be unique in that you've done design, you've done development, you've done some bits and pieces here and there, and therefore you can number one, you can judge better what he's saying or she is saying about this technical platform or a certain area of development. But at the end of the day, you've got to give, for it to work going forward, you've got to give the person space to grow. Hello. Say, put it around.
Can I attend for 5 minutes?
Yes, of
And then
course.
disrupt and leave?
Disrupted. So congratulations on the new president. I don't feel the love today. I don't feel the Morsi love. You have to give space, okay? But at the end of the day, you're final arbiter in any decision making, and then you take responsibility upon your own shoulders to say it's a good point, and maybe in a different time or with different circumstances we could go this way. Because we have a limited budget. Oh, we need to be faster, so we need to use this. Or there are other overriding factors that you will use to override that decision if it's critical. Often these kind of conflicts will come about maybe on the vision side. The senior roles might have their own vision for what you consider your baby or your startup, and therefore it becomes a bit more emotional, a bit more personal. So if you can separate that out, say, well, okay, I've hired or you're a partner in this because you're coming with technical expertise. I'm going to leave the technical expertise to you. It's لا غلط. It's not. And I trust you, and show me that you can do it right. Give the responsibility.
Okay, and even if sometimes we are 4 and 3 are saying something different, I'm saying something different. Sometimes I have to pull the CEO card. Like I'm CEO and this is what I believe. I understand what you're saying, but we're going this way.
Or you can buy yourself a little bit more time. Say, okay, I'm not going to make a decision on this. I'm going to go and think about it and do a little research and come back. Maybe I've got a different point of view and reconvene quickly on that. And maybe when people have gone away, they get less emotional and come back to a little bit more. There are other things rather than pulling out the CEO card straight away and say, yeah,
putting it out, but in a smart way.
yeah.
Okay.
And saying, okay, well, I think I'll give it more thought. And that way you're appeasing what there's, might be an emotional one, saying, yes, I agree to a certain extent, and I'll just give it more thought and we'll have another meeting on this. At which time, people may have calmed down, may have come over to your side of thinking, and you've got a second chance to push your agenda forward. In your startup, who is the boss and why?
Actually, we were two founders. Most of the time, we were able to agree to those decisions, but we were obligated to have a third co-founder to be able to form the company. So we decided to have that third co-founder to be that like a tiebreaker or something. That if we're not able to agree to a certain decision, so that third person will
Whatever is going to say, we're going
yeah.
Okay. I guess you'll see how it works. It's an interesting approach. Someone who doesn't have as much of a founder's startup type thing. Someone you brought in together to be. So who does he normally side with?
I don't know.
Oh, do you pay in Kit Kat? Do you pay in chocolate or do you? How do you get to make sure you get the decisions?
Actually, we work out the decisions, both of us, and until now we didn't need that third person.
Okay. Anyway,
وما له اسبوع عامة. ما خدوش سيشنز كتير غير هم يحضروا سيشنز. مين يقرر مين يحضر سيشن ومين يحضر سيشن.
you definitely get it. At some point, you have to get that third person to have saying it, because leadership isn't always and shouldn't always be. I'm the one who's the boss, and therefore it's going to be the way I say it. Leadership has a large element of listening to what other people's views are, and it's part of your motivation. If people don't feel that they're part of this, really part of this, and not just, you've got 5% equity, that's good. I really want to feel part of it, and I really want to feel part of the decision-making process, then they're not going to feel the high motivation that you need. Okay, so it's related to motivation. But it's important as young leaders to know that people ask, who's the boss of me and why are you the boss of me? Why am I the boss? Because you made me the boss. Or why am I the boss? Because, whatever, I founded it and it's my baby. I put the most money, I've got the greatest experience. It's always good to have that discussion really early on, things, rather than later on when people say, well, I put as much work into you. I've got the same risk as you. I've had the same story as you. And now you're telling me what to do. زي بعض. Then we get خناقات وانا همشي وانا هعمل ايه وانا هبوظ الدنيا. Okay, all this can be avoided by understanding the motivation of people you're working with, partnering with, and clearly defining that we work on it together and you have your area of expertise, I have my area of expertise, but if it comes down to the crunch, I will make the decisions based on what I think is best for the company. What do you think about V for Vendetta? Movie night, movie day, Vendetta. Okay, do you think that guy was a good leader? You're not this guy with mask. Never seen V for Vendetta?
Yeah, but I saw V for Vendetta. Yeah, I remember.
Or as a fun call it, V for Vendetta.
We're hearing so many adults.
خلي بالك عشان ما فيش كود بعد كده البي فور بندتا. مش هيبقى فيها اي تشويس، هم غيروا اسم الفيلم اصلا
So, that's, we could say that this guy was a thought leader, right? I mean, he said, well, the society, how many people have seen it, first of all, because there was? Okay. No seen it?
I know his story, and it's actually seen it.
Okay, so this was a lot of people thought this was a blueprint for Egypt's revolution. This is where they got inspiration from, to disrupt, to go into the streets, to make sure that, peacefully, to bring down the government. And that's why people were, there was no leadership. Okay. So V for Vendetta is a guy who had a great idea of, we have to change the society, but without leadership, faceless kind of thing. Now, hello, come in. Say it. Welcome. What would you say, for those of you who've seen the movie, at the end of the movie, how would you view his success as a leader? We were talking about Viva Vendetta. Very hard to speak.
بس ايه اصلا ما تقدرش تعتبر دي ان هو ليدر يعني.
A lot of people followed him. Like at the end of the movie,
هو
lot of
مش معنى ان
people.
انت يكون عندك فولورز معنى كده انت ليدر.
You know, he made a disruption. He يعني عمل هزة في السوسايتي فوقهم.
He went out, he put himself on TV in front of political leaders, and he made statements that by November the 5th next year, you will all come to this place and you will see the end of government. And trust me, just by moving forward peacefully, they will not attack you. That's basically the premise of his leadership. It's kind of thought leadership. He wasn't there. Actually, what he was doing was filling a train full of explosives and sending it down the tunnel. But the reason I bring him up, obviously, because we're in Egypt and a lot of people felt inspired by this, but the fact is that we saw, without having any clear leadership in terms of someone you can recognize as taking this movement forward, we left a vacuum somehow that's been filled by other parties. So it's also, when you look at these sort of very dramatic film leadership roles, you see that I, as a leader, I have a group of people who are going to follow me, both thought and action. But what happens at the end of my story? Is there an end? Is there an exit? Is there whatever? And what kind of vacuum am I going to lead? Or do I have a plan for 5 years' time? I am actually have built something that can live without me. It's very. I'm talking to a lot of young entrepreneurs here. They don't often understand or see the reason for ever leaving a company if they started it. What they want to do is to a company for life.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's my baby and
So maybe I'm going to grow it for life.
Yeah.
And that, and it's fine. But and, other areas, other cultures, it's much more. I understand that I'm doing this. I'll grow it to a certain amount, and then someone else will come in and take it to a larger thing, and I will maintain a small amount of equity, or I will be always known as the great guy who founded this company, or I will take the big cash into my life.
Start a new baby.
That's not a new baby. I'll have many babies. So thinking about your company and your leadership, it's quite important to think from now about what kind of exit you're going to have and how smooth and it's going to be for you emotionally and also
You said from now?
from now. In 3 months' time, you're going to be talking to investors, right?
Yeah.
And investors are going to say, "What's your exit?" That's pretty much one of the things they're going to talk about. Say, "Do you have a plan for your exit?" You'll cover this through the also.
No.
One of the things they're interested in to know is what's your plan for exit?
It's not always the case. Like if I get an opportunity for an exit, okay, I'm gonna use it. But I don't think like an exit is something that you plan. Or like they can ask me if if I leave the company for any reason it's going to fail or not. So I can tell them no, this guy he can do this guy can do that. But
But what they're really asking you is who would you sell your company to and why would they buy it? Because they're going to put in some money into this company and grow it to another size, and then they want you to be able to find another buyer or another partner or someone's going to acquire you or a bigger investor to come in and make it grow again, so that they get their money and profitability. So part of the startup thing is thinking, okay, for example, I'm doing something that would be very interesting to media companies, and these people are active in the region. Therefore, I will target my company from now, putting like a plan like this. That my vision is that in 2 years' time, I'll be such a headache to this company, or I'll be such a blessing to them that they want to acquire me or invest in me.
yeah, but this like happens automatically. If you are good at whatever you're doing, automatically they will try to approach you.
I'm just shocked. They don't really know you. They're not necessarily aware. You have to make yourself. You have to do some steps to make yourself
Noticeable by them.
noticed by them. Like Maktub. Okay, Maktub modeled itself on Yahoo. They made a carbon copy of Yahoo. Okay, but because the target was that there would be from 5 years ago there would be a target they'd be acquired by Yahoo. And they went all out to be acquired by Yahoo, turning up at events where Yahoo were sitting around at the table in the States. They made certain other acquisitions that would be attractive to Yahoo. But they put in from the beginning, we're going to exit. I mean, I have my Yahoo. When Yahoo looks at the region, what are they going to look at? They're going to look at us. Not going to look at Link. I'm not going to look at whoever, Sarmady or whoever. They put a very clear example, clear from their kinds of acquisitions and the way they structured the site, that it was a Yahoo built type of thing. You don't have to do it. It's all, these are things that as leaders you need to sort of think about, even in the early days, to say, well, my product or service, I want to do it for the rest of my life. I'm thinking this is going to be the seed for a massive kind of Apple. Why would I want to leave it? Or a massive Microsoft. Why would I want to leave it? Or a massive Aramex. Why would I want to leave it? Even the founders of Aramex, they do exits. They sell enormous chunks of their shares so they can grow the company globally. There's something to. It's not essential that you have to have clear cut 100%, but to have thought. The thought process is very interesting. Saying, well, okay, I'm building this for what? عشان نكسب فلوس. وبعدين who's going to take it to the next stage? You might have it within yourself to be able to be a global dominating company. It's very difficult unless you get other people to believe you, which is very straightforward now because they believe in your vision and motivation. When you come to talk to VCs, they're not emotional about what you're doing at all. So show me the money.
Yeah.
No offense to VCs.
We're nice people.
Have a coffee, lunch, chill out.
No, that's not money.
But you want our money, and you're going to do what with it? And when are you going to give it back? How are you going to give it back? This is.
But we care about the people.
Yeah. And then you guide them through it. Very good.
Yeah, this is why, like, sometimes I feel it's very important, like, to when I'm trying to deliver my vision. If I'm talking to investors, like I'm describing it in a completely different way from like when I'm talking while I'm hiring someone, like an intern or a fresh graduate or even my CTO. It's completely different, right?
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you're appealing to different motives.
Yeah.
I'm going to build the most financially successful.
Yeah, but like whatever is inside me, like my motivation, it may be like different from it's a mix between what the investor have in mind and what the fresh graduate have in mind. So
Yeah.
This makes sense.
It makes sense because you're appealing to their motivation, not your motivation as much. Yes, you know that you're not doing this to be fellas. You're doing this because you believe it's successful. The fresh graduate is interested in how successful might it be and what kind of role will I have in it. Big role, big title, all these sort of things. The investors think, how successful is it going to be in regional market or Saudi? Have you thought about this? Okay, so we mentioned the word guide. Does a guide always know the way? It should, yeah? But does a guide always know how long it's going to exactly take to get there? Not always, right? So you can say, I know the way to get here, but I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to take. It's quite important also to reevaluate that, because you make promises to people when you start your leadership. You say, Wallahi, inshallah, we'll finish this in 3 months, and then in 6 months we'll be a VC, and then by the 17, I have a suite of apartments in New York. Okay. Reassessing that as you go through and being honest and straightforward with people is part of your leadership thing as well. Because when you make promises, it's quite easy to forget exactly what promises you made. Say, you promise everything for everyone because you need as much help as you can get. So a lot of people feel that their boss or the leader or the guy is somehow has led me somewhere where I didn't expect to be. Okay? All of you will never ever be able to exactly say how long this journey is going to be. So yes, you're guiding a whole bunch of people with you, and they're putting their trust in you, and you've got a factor that you can't control, or many factors that you can't control actually. And therefore, you have to be careful when you're making promises in the first place, how you cut down on making promises for things that you cannot actually control. So VC doesn't come, angels aren't interested. Whatever you've got, if you think you've got a great product, what are you promising people? 5% of nothing is nothing. 100% nothing is also nothing. Okay, so if you come across many obstacles that are delaying you or there's a lot of resistance, part of your leadership is also the responsibility, the burden of leadership. It's called. And they say, sorry, but guys, we're not exactly where I said we would be, and I think these are the reasons. And I would like you to stay with me, because I think we can do it together. Or I think now it's time to disband and quit and try and do something else. Part of the burden of leadership is coming to those kind of really, really tough decisions. That's why having CEO is a very nice thing, but it's the E that's the very important letter in there, which is the executive, which means you've got executive decision making of saying, Malish, it's over, or Malish, we need to do something else, or Malish, let's all put our hands in our pockets and put some money on the table because we need to continue.